Anna, can you please tell how long did it take to shoot the film, the second and the first films which were shown
Yeah,
today?
I think they took actually more or less the same time, even if the first one is shorter. Maybe because I just had to make the other one very quickly, because I had this kind of deadline that it had to be shown in this particular exhibition, which opened at that time, etc. And the other one was a bit messy because I worked in collaboration with another artist, so it was much more about negotiating or talking through everything, and then also planning all the shooting in Japan, which was kind of interesting but also complicated. So I think around maybe a little less than a year for each of them, maybe, including writing and everything.
And you told that the second film was your work, which was presented at the same Kunsthall, right? At the place where all the works are shown after as graduation works.
Yeah.
And can you feel any crisis the same as Damla has, for example? Because it was kind of your graduation.
Yeah, I had this crisis. I even, because the film is somehow also about how it's impossible to display work or show artworks in this white cube. So on a certain stage I actually had the idea that I couldn't really show anything. It should be just empty, or I should show that film only and nothing else, and everything should be like this vast white space. And I thought about these things a lot. I even made another work once which was called Sometimes I Feel Like I'm Almost Gone, which shows artists in space, artists in galleries, with no objects, no real works. So I'm very interested in this idea of the artist alone in the space without anything.
You talk about the spaces, and what about the time? How do you identify the time? Is it what it is for you?
What time is for me? That's a difficult question. What do you mean?
Let's keep on the first film that was shown, because time is also one of the part of life, actually, of the main hero, because it definitely interfere in his life and makes some kind of effects.
Yeah.
And what about time for you? How do you identify it, maybe?
Yeah, I think if I should compare myself to the protagonist of the first film, and the way his time is somehow already bought and sold, or co-opted completely, so that his time is really not his time, it's someone else's time. And actually, as an artist, I feel often the same, that somehow you're working all the time to be able to do your work, and to be able to be an artist, you have to actually give away a lot of this time to not exactly to other people, but to the idea of being employable, which is like to get the next somehow work or exhibition or whatever. So I think in some way, as an artist, you're caught up in exactly the same logic as this Naoki Hayakawa in the first film. But of course, you're freer in the sense that you choose, you would like to do this. You do it for yourself, which is wonderful. And then I also like the scene of the second film where she's actually counting 1 minute, because then you realize that 1 minute is a very long time. And when you do nothing, when you just sit there and wait for the minute to pass, it's a nice feeling, I think.
My last question would be about the education, because this year Sonic X theme is also about the education, the system of education. Does it changed, or should it be changed somehow? And what do you think, if the art, like education, the art academy, is it good enough to feel and to be a good or just an artist, or to get some education, or are there any crises?
I think there are a lot of crises in this education, and they are twofold, or they are different. It's like the crisis of actually, which I talked about now after the film, which is about how privileged you actually have to be when you are an art student, and that, for example, very few people from any other class than upper middle class actually attend an art school, which is a crisis in itself. But then there is also this idea of art changing, and for example, the whole discussion on or a lot of the discussion around artistic research, I think also happened because you feel the pressure to defend art as something else than what it used to be. So art has to be knowledge production or research, almost as compared to normal research, which is clearly isn't. So I think also there is a kind of problem coming up now about how you cannot really just be this art student walking around thinking, trying to make something. You aren't really able to make it, you are in a crisis. You start something new, you know, all this kind of unproductivity, which is important, I think, for an art student.
And maybe not only for artists, just for people. Because
For people in general, yes, definitely.
There is definitely the waves. Thank you very much, Ane.
Thank you.